Hello and welcome to Research Methods Bootcamp Video Module 1, Intro to Research plus HSMC Catalog and Physical Space. This video will be divided into two sections. The first section will look at the Big Six method of information problem solving and also how to create a good research question, how to narrow and broaden that question, how to break the question down into smaller questions which will then help you with the rest of your research. The second portion of the video will be looking at how to use the ISM HSMC library catalog and then how to find the books on the shelves. And you will have some experience with all of these things when you complete your assignment, which you can find by clicking on the Module 1 task, and then that will open the form here. So let's start. First of all, we are going to be talking about information problem solving, aka research, in terms of the Big Six. There are a lot of different models of information problem solving. The Big Six is one of them, and it's the one that I like the most because it is just 6 steps. They're pretty clear, pretty obvious, and you can really apply them to any information problem that you have to solve. So they're really not just for academic tasks, essays, research projects, and things like that. You can also really apply these 6 steps to any time in your life when you need information to solve a problem or answer a question. So what the creators of the Big Six did, they're Michael B. Eisenberg and Robert Berkowitz, they actually analyzed what good researchers or what good problem solvers do. And so talking to a lot of people who solve problems, professionals, academics, this is what they've distilled. These 6 steps are what go into any good problem solving experience. And one of the things that I like the most about Big Six is the first step and the last step. So the last step is evaluation, which asks you to go that extra mile, and when you're completely finished with a project, you look at first, is the product that you have created or the answer that you have come up with, is it effective? Does it actually answer your information problem? And then also it asks you to judge the process. So did you do everything that was required by your assignment or by the actual question itself? And then did you really complete each of these Big Six stages efficiently, or did you kind of leave something out? So let's just look here. Task definition, we'll be looking at a lot more in the next few minutes of this video. So this is probably the most important step to really get right. And the first part of task definition is to identify the information problem. And it's important to do this because if you start with a really strong question that's not too broad and not too narrow, it will save you time during your research. It will help you come up with a more effective or accurate answer, and it will make your research experience that much more efficient and effective. Step number 2, information seeking strategies. So this one is looking at the first part here, determine all possible sources. So once you've got your task, your information problem figured out, the next thing you need to do is think, where are all the possible places that you could potentially get information about to answer this question? And you really need to think outside the box here. Do you know any people that you could interview? Could you contact experts? Could you use Twitter to contact experts, people who would know? Could you pay a visit to a university? Could you actually go and collect data yourself? Obviously, looking for books, looking for websites, blogs, academic papers. So you really need to think all the possibilities. And then, depending on your time, on the resources available to you, what are the best sources? Step number 3, location and access. So now once you've kind of got your plan for what types of sources you want to find, next thing to do is actually find out where are they located. So first one, locate sources intellectually and physically. Actually go to the library, use the catalog, find where the books are physically on the shelf, or also where are these websites online, where in Google Scholar, or in which databases should I go to. So you need to actually find the sources physically. If they're a person, how do you actually contact them? Email, phone, Twitter, blog post comments. Find the best way for you to get to those sources. Then, when the sources are in front of you, either metaphorically or physically, you need to find the information within them. And so, depending on the kind of source it is, you'll find the information differently. If it's an actual human, you'll ask them questions. If it's a book, maybe you'll use the index or the table of contents. Big old websites, articles, maybe you'll do some keyword searches, look at the site maps for some websites. Step number 4, once you actually find the information that you have, you're going to actually engage with it. So often I think people will find maybe an article or find something and they'll just maybe skim or maybe scan, but not truly engage with the material. Skimming and scanning, of course, is perfectly fine, but as long as you know exactly what you're looking for. So it's important to engage. So whether read, hear, view, touch, really work with the sources that you have. Give them their due. Spend some time with them. Then, and this is the key piece that I feel is left out of a lot of research done by anybody, high school students, middle school students, even college students and beyond. You really need to have a plan for how and where you're going to extract that information. So I'm going to be teaching you in a few modules from now how to take notes in a way that I believe is extremely effective. But somehow you need to have a plan for how you will consistently get the information out of what you're looking at and then organize it in some way so that you'll be able to go back, find the information quickly, have it organized in a way that will be useful to you. Step number 5, synthesis. Putting it all together. That's what synthesis means. So first, you'll need to organize from multiple sources. As I mentioned in step 4, it's important to have a plan for how you will organize the information you're extracting, whether you use graphic organizers or some folders in Google Drive or an Evernote account, anything like that, which will help you keep your information organized. Then, step 5.2, you actually present the information. This could actually be as an essay, as a group presentation, as just answering the question itself. So how will you actually go about putting that information out there? And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, evaluation. Did you actually answer the question or complete the assignment to the degree that it was explained to you? And then how would you do this differently next time? Did you kind of skip out on something, not really pay too much attention to finding all the sources that were available to you, or maybe you could take better notes? You know, each time is an opportunity to get better. So this is the Big 6 in a nutshell. Moving on, we're going to be really looking at step number 1, task definition. I liked this website. It's from the University of Connecticut in the United States, from their library. And they had just a couple of pages that I thought were pretty good explanations of how to actually create a research question. So first of all, they state that research requires a question for which no ready answer is available. So it shouldn't have a yes or a no, and it shouldn't be answerable by just a quick cursory Google search. So for their first point here, questions require answers. A topic is hard to cover completely because it typically encompasses too many related issues, but a question has an answer, even if it is ambiguous or controversial. So that's key to understand. You often will hear of somebody saying, oh, I'm doing an essay or a project on drugs and crime. That's a topic. That's huge. You could do any number of things and talk about any number of issues involving drugs and crime. Their causes, their effects, drugs and crime in certain areas, drugs and crime in history. You could write volumes on drugs and crime. So this will end up just wasting your time. You'll be searching forever. There will never be an end to this topic. However, if you change it into a question, how might liberalization of drug laws reduce crime in the U.S.? So still, it's in this topic, drugs and crime, but way more specific. And so in point number 2, they say questions give you a way of evaluating answers. A clearly stated question helps you decide which information will be useful. A broad topic may tempt you to stash away information that might be helpful, So with our drugs and crime example, you could spend hours and hours and hours on Google, Google Scholar, databases, and probably find thousands of articles that, fit this little category. But if you change your question to this, which is way more specific, you are not going to spend the hours and hours and hours and get thousands and thousands of articles. You're just going to find some, and this will make your life so much easier. So a question makes it easier to know when you have enough information to stop your research. So you've got, let's say, 15 articles that really address all different aspects of liberalization of drug crimes. Great. 15 articles for drugs and crime, keep on going. That's a huge topic. And point number 3, a clear open-ended question calls for real research and thinking. Asking a question with no direct answer makes research and writing more meaningful. Assuming that your research may solve significant problems or expand the knowledge base of a discipline involves you in more meaningful activity of community and scholarship. And this is what the EE is all about. These are supposed to be meaningful questions that don't have obvious answers and that are somehow relevant to your life or to the world today. So just to reiterate, the reasons for having good, thoughtful questions, because they require answers. There's really no kind of going on and on and on with research once you've got enough information for an answer. Two, questions give you a way of evaluating answers. When you're researching, it'll help you eliminate articles, books, things that are not specific enough to your question. And point number 3, a clear open-ended question really is true research and true scholarship. So these are the reasons why forming a good question is so important. Now, next point that they make is what happens if you have a research question that you really like, but, and this is important when you're starting to think about framing your research question, do some background searches. So spend, half an hour, thinking of the things that you might want to research and then doing some quick background searches. Use Google Scholar, use the research databases. And if you, for example, here find that your question is too specific and there really is not that much academic type of material out there, that question is probably too narrow. And so you'll need to broaden it. Here's an example of a narrow question. Should macaw whaling rituals be permitted despite endangered species laws? So maybe this person did some research on this, some background research, and they just aren't finding that much stuff about macaw whaling rituals. Here, they've broadened it. So, should Native Americans practice religious and social customs that violate local and federal laws? So now, instead of saying macaw specifically, they've said, all right, Native Americans in general. Here, instead of saying whaling rituals specifically, they're saying religious and social customs. And here, instead of saying endangered species laws, they're saying local and federal laws. Still very much within what this topic is about, just will be a lot easier for this person to find academic material that addresses this issue. Same here, what are the economic impacts of sweatshops on development in South Asia? Pretty specific. So here maybe they try, what are the impacts of US labor practices on developing countries? Broadens it a little bit. Now, alternately, you might have a question that is too broad and you've got way too much information. And so here I really like this little grid. They have 4 strategies for what to do to narrow a topic. So let's say they have their example. You want to do something about internet security. And so let's say you maybe have your question, you Google a question about internet security, and you've just got tons and tons of information. So one strategy is to add time to your question. So maybe you say current internet security initiatives, or maybe you say historical internet safety or security initiatives, or future. So add time to it somehow. Strategy number 2, add a place to it. So maybe you don't want to do just a specific time. Maybe you want to say internet security initiatives in the US or in Asia. Strategy number 3, a type of people group that this might affect. So filtering software and children's access to internet pornography. Here, viewpoint, so some kind of a bias or some kind of an opinion, the constitutionality of internet filtering technology. So these are 4 excellent strategies that can be applied to pretty much any topic or research question that you might consider. All right, next, looking again at task definition. So step number 1. Once you have created your research question and you have done some background research and you feel that it's not too broad, not too narrow, but just like Baby Bear, it's just right, then you should look at step number 1. And I created this, I call it a task definition bubble sheet because step 1 is task definition. And so here I'll just put in my information problem that I've already created after doing some background research and making sure it's not too broad or too narrow. So then for the big 6, that's step number 1. 1.2, so the second part, is to break it down. What is all the different kinds of information that you'll need in order to answer that main question? So back to the bubble sheet, I like to have students brainstorm all of the little things that they'll need to know in order to answer the big question. And you try to fill up all the bubbles. You can even add more bubbles, but just try to break it down into as small chunks of information as you possibly can. And then chances are, if you look through all of the bubbles that you filled in, you'll be able to come up with 3 or 4 categories or subtopics. And then these you can put down here. So what you can then do is take your finished sheet, then you can actually start using some sources, finding some information, doing keyword searches, looking in book indexes, and you use all of these keywords that you've come up with here. You can use some of the subtopics from down here, and this gives your research some guidance. And so an example of that I have filled out, let's say my information problem is, what are the most effective ways to manage stress in teenagers? So in my bubbles I've got types of stress faced by teens, physical effects of stress, mental emotional effects of stress, I even added one, types of therapy, types of medication, pros of medication, cons of medication, types of physical activities, meditation effects, breathing exercise effects, regular exercise effects, social effects, service activities, charity and being involved in charitable work effects, just general statistics about stress in teens, real life stories, examples, and then I want to find experiments that actually give experimental results. I looked at all of these bubbles and I kind of came up with 4 broad categories: causes of stress, effects of stress, behavior modifications, so doing things like meditation, breathing, service, therapy, all that, or medical modifications. So medicine, maybe I would actually put in therapy for medical modifications as well. So now look at all of these keywords that I could potentially use when I'm creating my searches in Google, Google Scholar, and databases. This really will prepare me without a whole lot of effort to have a really satisfying research experience. So first portion of the assessment will be question 4. What are the 6 steps of the Big 6 information problem solving model? What are the 6 steps of the Big 6 information problem solving model? Pause the video here, complete question 4. Continuing on with question 5. When starting a research project, why should your information problem be defined as a question as opposed to as a topic? When starting a research project, why should your information problem be defined as a question as opposed to as a topic? Pause the video here while you answer question 5. Restart the video when you have completed question 5. Question 6. What are 2 ways to make your research question more narrow? What are 2 ways or strategies to make your research question more narrow if it is too broad? Pause the video, complete question 6. Resume the video at the end of question 6. Continuing on with part 2 of the video module number 1, the library catalog. To get to the library catalog, you should come to the HSMC Weebly library site, which hopefully everyone has bookmarked by now, ismanilahsmc.weebly.com. It is both here on the front page. Also, if you're on the research page, it's right here, library catalog. And this is what it looks like. Pretty standard, just operates like a regular browser with a search bar. You just enter in some keywords. This one, you really don't need that many keywords because obviously the results list and all of the resources in this catalog are a lot smaller than, say, Google. So really I might do Chinese Revolution. I can do a keyword. I can also search by title or author. Here we've got 12 results, and so I wanted to point out the way that you read the results. So here obviously we've got the title, the Chinese Revolution. I can click on it, and if it had an author that was included in the entry, you would see the author as well. This is the call number. So this is the book's address on the shelf. So it's 951.05 CHI. And so this is actually a nonfiction book. And I know that because if it was a fiction book, it would say call number, FIC, and then the first 3 letters of the author's last name. But it just says the numbers and then the first 3 letters of, actually in this case, the title. So this is the address of the book. If you actually wanted to go and find the book on the shelf, you have to have this, okay? Also, if there was an R in front of this, that would mean it was a reference book. So it's kind of usually like a bigger book, specialty, and that's located in a different section of the library. All right, if you scroll down here, see if we can find any reference books. Not for that one. So let me just type in, this will be a really big one, science. I just wanted to find an example of a reference book. So here, this one is a reference book, call number R500. And so this is a different section of the library. If you walk around the HSMC or the library, you'll see that all of the shelves are pretty well labeled. So if you see R for reference with numbers, this is a reference book. It's located in the reference section. Alternately, for this one, there's no R. It's just the numbers. So you'd find the shelf that has this number range, because it's organized by numbers. So you would find this number and you would find this book. If it's a fiction book, you would see, all right, let's just do one here, dogs, and here's a fiction book. So fiction, FICKIN. So this is the call number. I would go to the fiction section. I would find the range of alphabet letters. That would include KIN, and there it is. So you've got to have the call number. It's really the only thing you need in addition to the title in order to find books on the shelf. The last thing I wanted to show you is you can actually find extended essays that are digitized and you can read the entire PDF. So if you could just type in extended essay, or if you knew of an IB subject that you wanted to find an extended essay in, you can actually do that as well. But you cannot just write EE, you have to write extended essay, otherwise you will not find them. So you can just do a search and then it will pull up all of the psychology extended essays that we have. So we've got 48 that are digitized. And so it tells you the call number, it tells you the author, and when it was entered into the system. So most recent ones I think we have are 2013 right here. And then these you can actually, as I said, click on it and then click here to read the online PDF. Or you actually can go in the library, there's a section by actually the head librarian's office, and there's a table and it's full of these actual print copies as well that are organized by subject matter. And now let's take a look at the last few questions of this module. Question number 7. Okay, this one is from part of the first module. So what is the task definition bubble sheet for? And why use it or something similar? And so you can actually find a link to the task definition bubble sheet when you click on the assessment task for this, that form. There's actually a link to look at the bubble sheet. So you can do that. So pause the video and complete question 7. And restart the video when you have completed question 7. Question 8. Complete a search in the HSMC catalog. Find a fiction book. In the answer box, write the title of the book, the author of the book, and the call number or address of the book. Pause the video, complete question 8. Question 9. Complete a search in the HSMC catalog. Find a nonfiction but non-reference book. So find a nonfiction book. In the answer box, include the title of the book, the author of the book, and the call number of the book. Pause the video, complete question 9. Question 10. Complete a search in the HSMC catalog. Find a reference book. So this is the one that starts with an R. In the answer box, title of the book and the call number of the book, because these often don't have just one author. Pause the video when you're finished. And question 11, last question in the video. Go find each of these 3 books from questions 8, 9, and 10 on the shelves. Were they there? Did you need help finding them? Were any of them harder or easier to find than others? For example, was it hard for you to find the reference books, or hard to find the fiction books, or were they all pretty easy to find? So find the books. Were they there? Did you need help? And were any of them harder or easier to find than the others? When you have completed question 11, you can complete the rest of the other question or 2 on that form, and you will have completed module number 1.